On December 4th, 2021, Shovan Pepaj died behind a locked gate in a suburban house in Tunbridge Wells. He was 25 years old, an Albanian gardener trapped in a cannabis factory he was paid to protect. He did not die because the police were too slow. He died because they were too fast, the wrong kind of fast. While he was being stabbed 16 times, his killers were on the phone to emergency services, their voices captured live on a 50-minute 999 call. This is not a story about a burglary gone wrong. It is about two criminal empires colliding in the dark, and the moment a robbery turned into a murder that recorded itself. The first empire was a convoy of 13 men from Essex who arrived at 3:15 in the morning with sledgehammers and a plan they called taxing, robbing other criminals who could not call for help. They brought 3 vehicles to a quiet street and executed what looked like a paramilitary extraction, not a break-in. The second empire was the Albanian syndicate that had turned an ordinary house into a fortress, complete with a reinforced steel gate on the landing and a rapid response team on standby. They had industrialized cannabis production across the UK, and they defended their territory with military discipline. Between these two systems stood Shovan Pepaj, a low-level employee whose job was to water plants and make one phone call if raiders came. That night, the gate held, the backup arrived, but the Essex crew made a call of their own to 999. What followed was recorded: the banging, the shouting, the command "stab him," and the sound of a knife finding its target. This is the anatomy of a botched extraction, where the only thing standing between two criminal business models was a locked gate, and the evidence came from the criminals themselves. 2 systems, 1 address, 1 man caught between them. The Essex crew was not a cartel. It was a hunger. They were 13 men from council estates and dead-end streets, ranging from 18-year-old kids chasing fast cash to a 52-year-old who had forgotten any other way to survive. Their business model was simple: taxing. They robbed other criminals. They targeted cannabis houses because the victims cannot call the police. The inventory was uninsured. The cash was liquid. The resistance was usually minimal. High reward, zero liability. Or so they believed. Their intelligence said soft target. A freelance operation, amateurs who would flee at the first sledgehammer strike. They were dead wrong. The house at Calverley Road was not a house, it was a node. A transnational Albanian syndicate had industrialized cannabis production across the UK, and this was one of their fortresses. The Essex crew thought they were hunting amateurs, but they were walking into a system that defended its territory with military discipline and cold mechanical efficiency. Inside, Shovan Pepaj was sleeping. He was 25 years old, Albanian, not a kingpin, not a gangster, a gardener. He occupied the lowest rung in a brutal hierarchy. He was a migrant trapped in debt bondage, placed in the house to water the plants and, if necessary, to use his body as a shield for the product. He was not there to fight. He was there to protect an asset, expendable overhead. From the street, it looked normal. Curtains drawn. But inside, they had ripped out everything. The whole house was now a factory. High-intensity sodium lights hummed around the clock. Electricity meters had been bypassed, stealing thousands in power. Every square foot was packed with high-yield plants worth hundreds of thousands on the street. But the critical modification was the gate. The reinforced steel gate at the top of the stairs wasn't designed to keep people out forever. It was designed to buy time. A physical firewall, a stalling mechanism that turned the upstairs landing into a panic room where the gardener could retreat and make one call. Not to the police, to management. The Essex crew brought sledgehammers, they brought numbers, they brought desperation. What they did not calculate for was a human being locked inside a steel cage, more terrified of his bosses than the men with hammers, waiting for a backup team that was already on its way. The plan relied on speed. The gate destroyed that equation. 3:15 in the morning, Calverley Road, the front door did not open. It detonated. Sledgehammers turned wood and glass into shrapnel. The Essex crew poured through the breach, a black wave of masks and adrenaline. Downstairs, the plan held. Crew members fanned into grow rooms, ripping mature plants from hydroponic trays and stuffing them into industrial bags. A smash and grab. In and out before the neighbors woke. Upstairs, the geometry shattered. Jovan Pepaj jolted awake to the sound of his world collapsing. He did not run for the exit. He ran for the cage. He ran up the stairs and yanked the steel gate shut. The lock jammed, a mechanical failure, but it held. He was trapped in a panic room of his own making, separated from the invaders by a grid of steel bars. 3 raiders charged up the stairs: Kieran Stewart, Kelvin Amoako, and Bartosz Malowski. They expected a cowering gardener. They hit a blockade. Now they were clustered on a narrow landing, screaming at a man they could not reach. The house split in 2. The looting zone downstairs, the kill zone upstairs. Then the impossible happened. Stewart reached through the gate. He didn't grab Pepaj, he grabbed the phone. He wrestled it from the gardener's hand. In panic, confusion, or some twisted attempt to control the narrative, he dialed 999. The call connected. For 15 minutes, Kent Police Control Room listened to a live broadcast of their own robbery. They heard bodies slamming metal, shouting in 2 languages, frantic breathing as the plan disintegrated. The raiders were logging their location and intent in real time, an evidence trail that should not exist. Then they heard the cars. Albanian backup arrived faster than police. Car doors slammed, fists hammered the damaged front entrance. Stewart, Amoako, Malowski froze. They were not hunters anymore. They were trapped in a bottleneck between a locked gate and a vengeful reinforcement team breaching downstairs. Panic took over. The 999 operator heard the shift. Shouting intensified. Commands turned lethal. The command was simple: stab him. Kelvin Amoako, an 18-year-old, thrust a knife through the gate gaps. It was not surgical, it was a frenzy. 16 wounds. 1 pierced Pepaj's heart. Blood filled the pericardial sac. Cardiac arrest. The gardener slumped behind the steel bars, dying in the cage meant to protect him. The raiders had seconds. Albanians were coming up the stairs. They could not stay. They could not go down. They smashed an upstairs window, kicked out the frame, and climbed onto the porch roof. One by one, they dropped to the ground, abandoning plants, abandoning the plan, leaving a dead man and a live phone line behind. Inside the house, Pepaj lay dying behind the gate. But here is what the Essex crew did not know. The 999 call was still recording. Every scream, every command, every second of the stabbing. They had just logged their own murder with the authorities. The escape was a masterclass in disorder. As the raiders fled the scene, they did not just leave forensic traces, they left a literal trail of merchandise. Cannabis plants were found scattered across Calverley Road, dropped in the panic to get into the vans before the backup team could box them in. It was a sloppy, frantic retreat that signaled the total collapse of the plan. But the most devastating evidence was not found on the tarmac. It was stored in the cloud. In the hours following the raid, while Jovan Pepaj lay dead behind the gate, the Essex crew did something that defies all criminal logic. They documented their success. Police later recovered mobile phone footage showing the crew celebrating the haul. They were laughing, bragging, and filming the bags of stolen plants. They were completely unaware that they had just committed a murder. They believed they had executed a successful taxing job, ignorant of the fact that their own voices had been recorded ordering a man's death just hours prior. This digital hubris provided the final piece of the puzzle for investigators. The 999 call became the star witness of the prosecution. It did not just alert the police, it provided a 15-minute script of the homicide. Analysts were able to isolate the voices, attributing specific commands to specific men. The phrase "stab him" was not hearsay, it was a recorded fact. This audio, combined with the phone location data and the celebratory videos, dismantled any defense of ignorance. Within hours, police seized the raiders' phones. What they found was almost comical in its stupidity. Videos, selfies, group photos of the crew laughing, posing with bags of stolen cannabis, boasting about the job. Some were filmed minutes after they had fled the house. They had no idea a man was dead upstairs. They thought they had pulled off a perfect robbery. Detectives described the footage as showing a complete lack of awareness that a murder had just taken place. But here is where the law gets complicated. The three men upstairs, Stewart, Amoako, and Malowski, held the knife. But what about the drivers, the lookouts, the men who never went inside? Were they guilty of murder too? The legal system said yes. It is called joint enterprise. The law has a rule called joint enterprise. If you help plan a crime that turns into murder, you are guilty too, even if you did not hold the knife. You do not have to hold the knife to be guilty of the killing. The entire convoy, the drivers, the lookouts, the men who never went upstairs, faced the consequences of the decisions made on that landing. The ledger was balanced with brutal efficiency. Kieran Stewart, Kelvin Amoako, and Bartosz Malowski were handed life sentences for murder, with minimum terms reaching up to 26 years. The wider crew received substantial prison terms for manslaughter and conspiracy. In total, the judge handed down over 100 years of prison time to the 13 men. The Essex crew was effectively erased from the map. But consider the other side of the equation. The Albanian syndicate lost a gardener and a single crop. Within weeks, it is highly likely that another house was rented, another gate was installed, and another gardener was placed inside. The Essex crew lost their lives to the prison system, and the syndicate simply wrote off a business expense. So, what is the final result of this collision? We are left with an equation where greed plus poor intelligence equals total system failure. The robbery crew assumed they were playing a game of low-risk theft, but they were actually playing a game of high-stakes territory control against a superior opponent. The locked gate stands as the enduring metaphor of this tragedy. It represents the physical and psychological barrier between low-level opportunism and organised transnational crime. The gate held. The system worked exactly as the syndicate designed it to. The gardener died to protect the asset, the police removed the rival crew, and the market continued without a pause. Justice was served for Pepaj, but the real problem did not change. As long as money is there, another house will open, another gate will lock, another gardener will die. Pepaj came to the UK looking for a better life. Instead, he found a locked gate and 13 men with knives. He was 25. He never got to be anything else. But where do these plants come from before they reach the suburbs? That is a different investigation entirely. One that leads us away from the quiet streets of Tunbridge Wells and toward the shipping containers at the ports, where the supply chain truly begins.